fluoride has been put in Phoenix's water supply for more than 20 years. But all of that time, there has been a group of people that feels like it is doing harm to the human body. Of course, there are many scientific studies that say otherwise. So this morning, we want to have a debate before a debate that is coming up a little bit later today in a Phoenix City Council subcommittee. I want to go ahead and introduce to you, first of all, on the telephone is Jody Clute with the Fluoride Free Arizona Association. And then joining us here in the studios, you can see sitting next to me, is Dr. Howard Farran, a dentist who has been long time speaking out regarding this issue. Dentist Farran, I want to start with you first. There have been many government studies over the years that say that fluoride not only is not harmful to the human body, but it actually does a lot of good.
Since we started doing this in 1945, there's been 5,900 studies published on PubMed that all endorse this. Over 100 organizations from the Centers for Disease Control, the American Medical Association, the Medical Dental Association, everybody endorses this. And it's been in the Phoenix water since 1989. That's 23 years. There are a lot of studies that show when you take the fluoride out of the water, you immediately have an increase of 25% in decay in cavities showing up. Right now in Phoenix, Arizona last year, 8% of all emergency room visits were dental related. So the poor who might not have dental insurance, might not have the money, they end up in emergency rooms, and that's incredibly costly.
All right, Dr. Farran, I'm going to get back to you in a second, but Ms. Clute, let me go to you. Is there any direct scientific evidence that you have been able to produce that can say that fluoride in these small doses is harmful to the human body?
Well, I'm not only bringing evidence to the council hearing this morning, I'm actually bringing the EPA. We just got the batch reports from the City of Phoenix Water Department, the last 6 batch reports, which actually do the certificate of analysis of the HFSA that comes in from Juarez, Mexico, and every single batch report has arsenic. So you cannot tell me, and Dr. Farran cannot tell me, that any level of arsenic is acceptable in human consumption. So what we decided to do, because nobody seems to be listening to the scientists, I mean the actual scientists, not the dentists who claim what the scientists say, not the CDC, not the EPA, I'm actually bringing to you Dr. William Hersey. And Dr. William Hersey, for 27 years, was a senior scientist in the EPA in the risk assessment in the Office of Toxic Substances. Between 1981 and 2008, he was the senior vice president, the president, and the vice president of the EPA headquarters Science Professional Union. The reason this union existed is because the scientists were receiving too much political pressure from the EPA management.
Well, Ms. Clute, let me stop you for a second. We should say that even though he is a former EPA scientist, the EPA's public position is that fluoride in the water is good for human consumption. So this man he may have solid points, but he does not speak for the EPA.
Actually, he does speak for the EPA. He speaks for the entire union of scientists. And the EPA actually does not physically endorse water fluoridation, and he will explain what that actually means in the hearing because it's too complex for me to explain it.
All right, Ms. Clute, hold on a second. I want to bring Dr. Farran back in here.
But if you listen to her closely, she talks about political pressure. The anti-fluoridationists, if you go to their website, the opening shot is the White House draped in Nazi swastikas with Nazi soldiers, and there's always a conspiracy.
That is not true.
It started out as a communist plot.
On YouTube that you just picked. That was not true.
The Centers for Disease Control has 15,000 employees, a $9 billion budget, and these people always discount the 15,000 scientists of the CDC, 5,900 published researchers, and they just pull this stuff out of thin air.
Well, Dr. Farran, let me stop you there. And Ms. Clute, I will give you the last word, but I want to ask you a direct question. If fluoride has shown, and it has shown, to be beneficial to the dental health of all people, especially the people who can't afford to supplement their own diet, then if your concerns are legitimate, why would you want the government to stop doing this for everybody when you yourself can just stop drinking the water that you are concerned about and supplement with bottled water that you find in the store?
Well, what about when you go out to eat? What about when you shower? What about when you have some tea at a restaurant? What about when you consume food that has fluoride in it? You can't escape it.
But Jody, you know, people call this planet Earth, but it's really planet ocean. 70% of the planet is ocean, and the fluoride in the ocean is twice the level we want to put it in the water. In the ocean, it's 1.5 parts per million, where 70% of all species and life forms have been living for billions and billions and billions of years. So how can all of a sudden...
I've heard all of these statistics. The CDC website, if anybody just goes to the CDC website themselves and Googles the fluoridation issue, it shows that there's risks with dental and skeletal fluorosis at over levels. It shows if you just, somebody just needs to actually go themselves to the CDC or the EPA website and they can look at the
Jody, I've been studying this a lot since 1984.
Of red flags to say that there is no adverse health effect in fluoride. Just it's almost like you're being hysterical on the other side of the coin.
Well, I will say that
is Harvard a bunch of idiots? Is this EPA scientist an idiot? Is every scientist that came out against fluoride, are we all idiots? Am I an idiot?
You're not an idiot. You're not an idiot, Jody. I respect your passion. I respect your concern, but we live 34 years longer now than we did 100 years ago.
All right, I'll tell you what.
And the Centers for Disease Control calls
Neither
us
of you are idiots. That's why we had you on the show, but we can't go on this all day. We will be covering the meeting at the Phoenix City Council a little bit later on. Ms. Clute, I do appreciate you joining us this morning, and we should say that there have been movements like this in the past that have been against inoculation, that have been against silicone breast implants, but as time delineated it all out, the government decided to continue doing these types of programs because the overall health is better for people. We will find out more about that debate today at the Phoenix City Council. Doctor, thank you for being here.
Thank you very much, Pat.